Aeonic emanations. The Church exists in the dispositions and properties in which the Father and the Son exist, as I have said from the start. Therefore it subsists in the procreations of innumerable eons. Also in an unaccountable way they too beget, by the properties and the dispositions in which it, the Church, exists. For these comprise its association which they form toward one another, and toward those who have come forth from them toward the Son, for whose glory they exist. Therefore it is not possible for mind to conceive of him. He was the perfection of that place, nor can speech express them, for they are ineffable and unnameable and inconceivable. They alone have the ability to name themselves and to conceive of themselves, for they have not been rooted in these places. Those of that place are ineffable and innumerable in the system which is both the manner and the size, the joy, the gladness of the unbegotten, nameless, unnameable, inconceivable, invisible, incomprehensible one. It is the fullness of paternity, so that his abundance is a begetting of the eons. They were forever in thought, for the Father was like a thought and a place for them. When their generations had been established, the one who was completely in control wished to lay hold of, and to bring forth that which was deficient in that, and he brought forth those, him. But since he is as he is a spring, which is not diminished by the water which abundantly flows from it. While they were in the Father's thought, that is, in the hidden depth, the depth knew them, but they were unable to know the depth in which they were. Nor was it possible for them to know themselves, nor for them to know anything else. That is, they were with the Father. They did not exist for themselves. Rather, they only had existence in the manner of a seed, so that it has been discovered that they existed like a fetus, like the Word he begot them, subsisting spermatically, and the ones whom he was to beget had not yet come into being from him. The one who first thought of them, the Father, not only so that they might exist for him, but also that they may exist for themselves as well, that they might then exist in his thought as mental substance, and that they might exist for themselves too, sowed a thought like a spermatic seed. Now, in order that they might know what exists for them, he graciously granted the initial form, while in order that they might recognize who is the Father who exists for them, he gave them the name Father, by means of a voice proclaiming to them that what exists through that name, which they have by virtue of the fact that they came into being, because the exaltation which has escaped their notice is in the name. The infant, while in the form of a fetus, has enough for itself, before ever seeing the one who sowed it. Therefore they had the sole task of searching for him, realizing that he exists, ever wishing to find out what exists. Since, however, the perfect Father is good, just as he did not hear them at all so that they would exist only in his thought, but rather granted that they, too, might come into being, so also will he give them grace to know what exists, that is, the one who knows himself eternally. Form to know what exists, just as people are begotten in this place. When they are born, they are in the light, so that they see those who have begotten them. The Father brought forth everything like a little child, like a drop from a spring, like a blossom from a vine, like a flower, like a planting, in need of gaining nourishment and growth and faultlessness. He withheld it for a time. He who had thought of it from the very beginning, possessed it from the very beginning, and saw it, but he closed it off to those who first came from him. He did this not out of envy, but in order that the eons might not receive their faultlessness from the very beginning, and might not exalt themselves to the glory, to the Father, and might think that from themselves alone they have this. But just as he wished to grant that they might come into being, so too, in order that they might come into being as faultless ones, when he wished, he gave them the perfect idea of beneficence toward them. The one whom he raised up as a light for those who came from himself, the one from whom they take their name. He is the Son, who is full, complete, and faultless. He brought him forth mingled with what came forth from him, partaking of the totality, in accordance with, by which each one can receive him for himself, though such was not his greatness before he was received by it. Rather he exists by himself. As for parts in which he exists in his own manner and form and greatness, it is possible for them to see him and speak about that which they know of him, since they wear him while he wears them, because it is possible for them to comprehend him. He, however, is as he is, incomparable, in order that the Father might receive honor from each one and reveal himself, even in his ineffability, hidden and invisible. They marvel at him mentally. Therefore the greatness of his loftiness consists in the fact that they speak about him and see him. He becomes manifest, so that he may be hymned because of the abundance of his sweetness, with the grace. And just as the admirations of the silences are eternal generations, and they are mental offsprings, so too the dispositions of the Word are spiritual emanations. Both of them, admirations and dispositions, since they belong to a Word, are seeds and thoughts of his offspring, and roots which live forever, appearing to be offspring which have come forth from themselves, being minds and spiritual offspring to the glory of the Father. There is no need for voice and spirit, mind and word, because there is no need to work at that which they desire to do, but on the pattern by which he was existing. So are those who have come forth from him, begetting everything which they desire. And the one whom they conceive of, and whom they speak about, and the one toward whom they move, and the one in whom they are, and the one whom they hymn, thereby glorifying him, he has sons. For this is their procreative power, like those from whom they have come, according to their mutual assistance, since they assist one another like the unbegotten ones. The Father, in accordance with his exalted position over the totalities, being an unknown and incomprehensible one, has such greatness and magnitude, that if he had revealed himself suddenly, quickly, to all the exalted ones among the eons who had come forth from him, they would have perished. Therefore he withheld his power and his inexhaustibility within that in which he is. He is ineffable and unnameable, and exalted above every mind and every word. This one, however, stretched himself out, and it was that which he stretched out which gave a foundation and a space and a dwelling place for the universe, a name of his being, the one through whom, since he is Father and the All, out of his laboring for those who exist, having sown into their thought that they might seek after them, the abundance of their consists in the fact that they understand that he exists, and in the fact that they ask what it is that was existing. This one was given to them for enjoyment and nourishment and joy and an abundance of illumination, which consist in his fellow laboring, his knowledge and his mingling with them, that is, the one who is called and is in fact the Son, since he is the totalities, and the one of whom they know both who he is, and it is he who clothes. This is the one who is called Son, and the one of whom they understand that he exists, and that they were seeking after him. This is the one who exists as Father, and as the one about whom they cannot speak, and the one of whom they do not conceive. This is the one who first came into being. It is impossible for anyone to conceive of him or think of him, or can anyone approach there, toward the Exalted One, toward the pre-existent in the proper sense. But all the names conceived or spoken about him are presented in honor, as a trace of him, according to the ability of each one of those who glorify him. Now he who arose from him when he stretched himself out for begetting, and for knowledge on the part of the totalities, he of all the names without falsification, and he is, in the proper sense, the sole first one, the man of the Father, that is, the one whom I call, the form of the formless, the body of the bodiless, the face of the invisible, the word of the unutterable, the mind of the inconceivable, the fountain which flowed from him, the root of those who are planted, and the God of those who exist, the light of those whom he illumines, the love of those whom he loved, the providence of those for whom he providentially cares, the wisdom of those whom he made wise, the power of those to whom he gives power, the assembly of those whom he assembles to him, the revelation of the things which are sought after, the eye of those who see, the breath of those who breathe, the life of those who live, the unity of those who are mixed with the totalities. All of them exist in the single one, as he clothes himself completely, and by his single name he is never called. And in this unique way they are equally the single one and the totalities. He is neither divided as a body, nor is he separated into the names which he has received, so that he is one thing in this way and another in another way. Also, neither does he change, nor does he turn into the names which he thinks of, and become now this, now something else, this thing now being one thing, and at another time something else. But rather he is wholly himself to the uttermost. He is each and every one of the totalities forever at the same time. He is what all of them are. He brought the Father to the totalities. He also is the totalities. For he is the one who is knowledge for himself, and he is each one of the properties. He has the powers, and he is beyond all that which he knows, while seeing himself in himself completely, and having a son and form. Therefore his powers and properties are innumerable and inaudible, because of the begetting by which he begets them. Innumerable and indivisible are the begetting of his words, and his commands, and his totalities. He knows them, which things he himself is, since they are in the single name, and are all speaking in it. And he brings them forth, in order that it might be discovered that they exist according to their individual properties in a unified way. And he did not reveal the multitude to the totalities at once, nor did he reveal his equality to those who had come forth from him.